Welcome to You Heard It From Us, the podcast where adventure meets advice. I'm DNDWife, your artistic storyteller and dedicated miniature painter.
And I'm Dungeon Master Eguile, your seasoned storyteller with a flair for epic tales and a passion for bringing our worlds to life. Together, we are a couple of nerds.
Whether you're navigating the depths of the dungeon or the dynamics of your gaming table, we're here to explore the vibrant world of tabletop role-playing games with you.
Each episode, we dive into topics that every gamer can relate to, like, is there really such thing as too many dice?
Or how to keep the peace when your co-adventurer is also your co-pilot in life.
We share our own trials, triumphs, and tales from the enchanting world of Extraeus and beyond, all while connecting with you, our amazing Ttrpg community.
From community polls to social media shoutouts, we want you to be part of our adventure. So grab your favorite set of dice
and join us as we embark on a quest to make your tabletop gaming experience more fun and meaningful.
This is You Heard It From Us,
where every episode is an adventure. Welcome, adventurers, to You Heard It From Us. Today, we're stepping out of the dungeon and into your homes to tackle a fun question. How do you display your nerdiness at home?
Whether it's a tiny figurine on your desk or a full-blown themed room, we all have our unique ways of showing our passions. So we'll be exploring how the TTRPG community brings their hobbies to life in their living spaces and sharing some tips of our own.
So grab your dice, settle into your nerdy nook, and let's dive into another episode of You Heard It From Us. Don't forget to like, review, and join us on Discord to share your nerdy setups. So obviously we talked recently in Adjust Us about our own little kind of nerdy passions that we've displayed around our house. So we figured, why not ask the community?
Right? See who else is doing it with the hashtag nerd spaces, just so that we all know.
Now, obviously, not everyone is quite forward in front to just show pictures of their house or apartment.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
we just figured we'd ask a simple question of just kind of how do you display your nerdiness around your home? And we really thought that was kind of a real easy,
a little safer.
and we just thought because there is kind of this importance to showing off and being able to display your nerdiness.
Yeah, it's just so liberating, I think, to be able to be open about it in your own home. And I don't think it's just about, showcasing whatever nerdy items you have or collectibles necessarily, although there is a certain aspect of like, hey, look at all my stuff. But it is also about creating that space that just feels completely uniquely you. And I think it makes you so comfortable when you can see like you're surrounded by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being the introverts that we are, it is kind of important to have like that space where it's like, your safety net, your comfort, and when you're, I think, obviously when you're a kid, you're so used to it just being your room.
Yeah, just one space.
Right, and so when you get to that opportunity of, big
decorating a home,
adulthood where you've got a whole house, it does change up the scope as to kind of what do you do, and not make it just like, every college dorm room in America.
Posters everywhere.
But it also has so much more that it can become that showing your fandom could really kind of lead to others as well.
Absolutely. You can make so many friends just by like having stuff out and just being open about your things. We have a lot of stuff in our living room, but I remember growing up as a kid, going over to a friend's house. She had some really awesome anime decor, and that led to like me asking like, what is this? And she ended up showing me the movie Princess Mononoke, and that's how I got into like my early anime kind of forays beyond Inuyasha.
Yeah, right. I remember like especially in college or school in your room, it's always like that expression of like what you've seen and kind of like your proof of what like and what you've seen. So it's kind of always cool where you either get like people that are like, oh, I've seen that, or kind of question as like you can get that whole like, oh, let me introduce you to this anime. Oh, you've never heard of this?
Oh, you think that's interesting? Wow.
Yeah, I think it's always kind of funny, and it's really cool because there's so many ways to do that too. Like it's not just, I guess, the old ways of just like, you stick a poster on the wall with tape or you have like, these different figurines or whatnot. There are so many different, I call them tchotchkes, but that just comes from my ways of upbringing. But these little, like, all these kind of things from inspired clocks, designs, arts, models, figurines, paintings, there's posters, plushies, pillowcases, glasses, light bulbs, you name it.
Yeah.
And it all varies from what I consider to be like extremely kitsch, which is sometimes super fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very professional. Like some of the prints,
Very
especially
chic and elegant.
especially like my Persona 5, where it was drawn by this artist. It's like you would never know if you didn't know that it was a game, that it was actually not just a piece of art.
Right, that it's just not four random people looking really cool. It's got a story behind it.
Yeah, and for me, and to really kind of extrapolate even further for us in the TTRPG community, right? Especially as a dungeon master, like I incorporate a lot of our like Dungeons and Dragons stuff as our art.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like, if you've heard us before, we have an entire wall dedicated to just D&D that's both form and function. It's not just just where we put all our stuff between sessions, but it's art pieces, it's our minis, the previous campaigns, some of the best figures that you've painted, as well as various art pieces from both you and Entlink that display all the stories of the campaigns.
The giant dragon head mount.
Well, yeah. Well, I got every dungeon master has to have a dragon, but it just shows that you can. It doesn't really matter how big or small like that space is. You totally can showcase your pride in what you do. And obviously, we say nerdiness, but it literally can be anything. I mean,
whatever you're passionate about.
Cars, it can be a whole rack of cars.
You can be a car
cars.
nerd, absolutely.
But it's just like there's that sense of being when you can have a space that you look at and it's totally everything that represents you.
Yeah, everything you're interested in is represented there. So I think there's just something so liberating about that. It's also, I think, really a great conversation starter. Like you've said, you can make friends doing that. So, it's really nice.
Yeah, and so, it always kind of, wonders to me because obviously, we go to a lot of conventions and we go a lot of places, but obviously with the access to the internet, everyone has like ways to get all these kind of items and belongings. Yeah. So, it's always, we were curious, to spawn this question because we have we've, I guess in our sense, barely tipped our kind of pinky toes in a lot of the fandoms and things like Funkos in autographed art.
Yeah.
What else do we got? We're dipping into the non-Funko models.
The figurines.
Right? The figurines. Like that's a whole nother ball game, right?
They're so cool.
And so by seeing that, like there's so many different ways, it was curious to see like how other people could incorporate those unique pieces into art. And we looked on things like Pinterest and on various things on YouTube, Imgur, looking at these various things to see kind of how people have, and I've seen some of the, like we've talked, those amazing like Dragon Ball Z models that are like with huge, lights. They're lit up, and you see them in these like large curio cabinets, and I've always wanted something like that because to me it was like that's like the ultimate way to display,
or the cool mounted wall art where it's coming out.
Yeah, I always felt like the evolution is like, okay, you have your posters on the wall, then you get them framed, then you get them lit.
Yeah,
and once your like art is all lit up and they all have their own special lighting, now you've hit the big leagues, and now you're doing really good.
Right.
So anyway, when we actually open it up to our community and asked, we kind of got an interesting response. So what was our question for this episode tonight?
Today's question was, how do you display your nerdiness at home? We had a couple of choices. The first is the full home nerdy haven, followed by the one wall / cabinet, and then only in my room where no one can see. And I don't display anything with a sad crying face on it.
And so what was the results?
It was actually pretty well split between only in my room where no one can see and full home nerdy haven.
Yeah, I figured that was kind of what usually it was, because obviously most of the people talking about, their homes being their whether they were homeowners or, people that had like an apartment like us where they had the access to be able to say they had these rooms. And we heard things of, a lot of dreams of wishing to have like, a fantasy style kitchen. One person talked, hopefully about, maybe making like a fantasy tavern style dining room.
Oh, that
kind of like
so
Lord of the
cool.
Rings themed. I've seen a lot of that online. There's these guys that make a lot of Lord of the Rings like themed gaming rooms.
Oh,
and they're
that's
just
amazing. Yeah.
But then the other side obviously was kind of our old bread and butter of your room, your private sanctuary, the church of nerdiness.
Yes. Only yourself goes there.
Right, where it was where you could really also display anything because it is your spot. It's a game room, it's a maybe your study, but it's really kind of this one space where probably not a lot of people, at least from what we were told, not a lot of people get to see this space. It's kind of the
inner sanctum,
the shunned in a closet. You get to have the smallest room in the house for your hobby, kind of thing.
A little squeeze in there.
And to me, I feel like a lot of it, and we were joking around in our Discord, and the idea that it's probably related a lot to like, are both of the people living in the space really into the nerdiness or not? And if one was and the other wasn't, it was off to the room you go.
Yep.
And if they both were, then there was a lot more design ideas.
Yeah, and it was more likely a full-blown decoration of the home rather than just relegated to one room if it was the couple that is both into nerdy things.
And I mean, the thing too is I think a lot of it is kind of, I feel like a lot of us D&D players like to also have kind of the subtle nuance, the ways to hide certain things, and it can be things like, a D20 lamp where, we know it's a D20, it's in the shape of a D20. I can't remember what I know, like, I think a D10 is like a
dodecahedron.
That's
or
a
something?
D10.
Oh.
Dodecahedron. I always know that one, but it's a D10.
That's a D10.
But you have that that shape, and it's like everyone's like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
To going even so far as using D&D maps that you would get out of campaign books and having them framed, right?
Oh,
like that's a cool combo that you can do really easily.
Yeah.
That already really, if you buy a lot of the D&D campaign books, they come with maps.
That's true.
And it's both form and function. Again, you can now, party's coming to play this. I'll just take the map off the wall.
Yep.
Now we're ready to go.
Yay.
And now it doesn't get messed up.
That is cool, and it's protected. It's safe, and everybody can look at it. And if it's behind glass or plastic or something like that, like you can write on it in dry erase and whatnot.
Right. And like even when looking at ourselves, when we even compare ourselves to this, we kind of have a little bit of both because we have what used to be kind of just a solo extra room that had gone from storage to workspace to now, in this day and age, streaming room, craft room,
sort of office,
D&D, DM setup, prep space. We really turned this room that we're currently recording from into a very big haven for us and all of our
huge
hobbies.
Multifunctional room for everything we like to do. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. But if you don't have a nerdy partner at home, that can require some compromise.
Right.
You can't dedicate everything to your own nerdy loves without incorporating what your partner loves. And so I think having a designated room for something like that when you are two separate people with separate interests, that might be a better sort of way to go to keep the peace.
Ease it in a little.
Yeah. And you never know, if you start with the room and you sort of compromise there, they might like the decor and they might want to spread it out further, and you never know.
I think a lot of that, right. It's the unfortunate misconception, as a chef too, I get that a lot, where like I have to explain to people like what they see in television and movies, especially in the older days, is not the same thing.
No.
It's the same thing with kind of like nerdiness and nerddom, where they go, oh, it's these giant inflatables, these body pillows,
Star Wars everywhere,
or just the anime stuff, right?
Yeah, that too.
Where it's just going to be like, oh, I don't want that.
Right.
Where it's
like,
no,
weird.
but then you kind of show them where it's like, no, it's not necessarily. It's
not always that.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Some of us are classy nerds, okay? But yeah, it's so interesting to see before to now, because when we first started, we really were unsure, right? As every new couple is, right. we don't know what the other's thinking, so we were both worried about encroaching on the other person in our shared living space with our own nerdy things. So we decided to set up a little nerd corner as a test.
Right, a little tester.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, too, was, obviously, especially when two nerds meet, there's always that, like, what fandoms are you a part of and what your partner is.
Do we share any?
Are you on conflicting? Are you DBZ? Are you One Piece? There's a lot of things that can happen,
That's
right?
True.
And so it is, how it starts off of, like, okay, will they like this? Obviously, DBZ is my personal favorite. It's very aggressive, but not everyone is a cup of tea. Bleach. Right? So it is nice when also the two also happen to like and share fandoms, which is how, like we said, if you're displaying kind of your favorite things, that can sometimes create a mutual appreciation for it.
Right? You never know. I would say always give it a try. Compromise can sometimes lead to that strengthening of not just the appreciation of the hobbies, but of the relationship as a whole.
Yeah. And plus, you might share knowledge that maybe you didn't know, and you can introduce them to your fandom, and now you're both into it.
Yeah, and that's always so much fun.
A lot of that's happened to us quite often. And I think you make a really great point. Like you were saying, it really doesn't just start overnight either.
Yeah.
Like you really kind of start filling in the gaps. At first it's easy to cover the walls with like
everything you can find.
Pieces of wall scroll or parchment or whatnot. But as you start getting more nuance and you want to display more, it starts becoming more of like finding the right items. So really, it really just say start small, a single shelf, a bookcase. That way you can just show little pieces. If you're a D&D fan, I always encourage all my players is like make a shelf dedicated to your characters, right? Put the the notes, the journals, whatever kind of trinkets you got during the session. That way every day you see it, you can remember the past stories.
Beautiful
and they're not,
nostalgia.
Yeah, it's not just something in the past.
Yeah.
But really, there's so many ways now with, I'm a big organization person. There's so many ways that you can like create easy, stackable, space-saving places all over, whether it's in like your closet, on like your bedstand or your nightstand, that you can make little modular shelves that can definitely store just about anything.
They can hold pretty well, and you can always use other like cardboard boxes to fit into them, like little drawers or something.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that like it's weird to say this, but I feel like framing has kind of gone away. Like people don't realize just how many unique kinds of frames there are.
True, yeah.
And going to a place like Michael's or whatnot, you can get like book box frames, and so you can put different D&D books or different arts. It doesn't just has to be like thin pieces of paper. You can get box art and put it up,
put big things in there
and display your favorite things much more artistically, and kind of bridge that gap between just being nerdy and also being chic.
Right. So there's something between just setting it somewhere and then like taking the time to arrange it. That's I think where like the chic part of the nerdy decor comes in, where you elevate it a little bit. So that's where it's I think you can kind of make it a little more adult, where it's not just your teenage room from back in the day. But it's not just how you arrange it. It's also the pieces that you choose. Those are important, right? It's not just buying all the artwork that it has to do with whatever you love. It's about buying the correct artwork that really evokes that feeling in you.
I mean, there's so much out there, and the thing that you've taught me is that there's a big difference between like print, like screen print, like versus someone who just like downloaded it, versus the artist, versus hand print, versus canvas,
full
versus
canvas,
printed canvas versus painted canvas.
And the price points are different among all of those choices. So you really want to take your time to pick out the wall art that strikes you best, that really will add to the nerdy vibe of your space without detracting from like, let's say, like the size or the clutter.
Right.
Yeah. I also encourage people to combine decor with function. It's something we always like to incorporate that in our homes as well. So we really encourage that. Just like using a dice tower that matches the room aesthetic will mean you can display it on a gaming table or a shelf and it won't look out of place.
Because one thing I think a lot of people don't realize, especially us D&D players, a lot of that stuff takes a lot of space.
Oh yeah.
And so if it can be put out in the open, so like I think the biggest notion of that is our gaming mugs.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're very large.
They're huge.
And we have 6 of them. And so trying to find a cabinet or a space to put those in without being damaging is so tough. But by turning them into a display, now they're out of the way, and they form a great look to our D&D wall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always love looking at them because they're engraved. You can see kind of a little bit of the story,
who they belong to.
Yeah, it's nice. You always get reminded of that. And then another big thing that I would recommend is DIY projects can really not just add to the decor of your space, but it also helps you in the wallet section.
Heck yeah, that's how we got a lot of our stuff start. Was you were being art and craft crazy.
Well, if you're artistically inclined, if even if you're just really interested in creating pieces of yourself that you can just put up on your walls, I would encourage you to try at least, because it's so much fun to paint or to sculpt or draw, whatever you're into, and it's always fun to always have those displayed too, even if you think they might not be good. There's always someone out there that appreciates artwork.
Oh yeah, and especially if you're into like a lot of the refurbishing, where you can find maybe like an old bookshelf and you can repaint it and scribe some draconic runes all over it, and it's cool. So simple and very inexpensive.
Absolutely.
My biggest thing, and you always kind of laugh too, is like I have this thing about rearranging stuff too. I'm a big person where like after like a year to like 6 months, I'm like, okay, this all needs to look different.
A little bit of a change.
And so when you have things in like frames and have the different pictures, it's nice because you can move things, change things much easier, feature different artists, feature different color
cycle
themes.
out.
So we have that way you're kind of, even though you're limited with only so much wall space, you can give a little bit of time to each of your favorite artists or your favorite paintings.
And you don't feel tied down.
Yeah, and I feel like that creates a really cool kind of look to where maybe someone comes to your space, they see it one way, the next time it looks entirely different with different art.
Keeps it so fresh, interesting. You can always have new conversation pieces. It's always best.
And it is kind of funny too, because, a lot of this stuff, we say is expensive, it's costly. And as well as a lot of it takes a lot of space. And there has to be a lot of discussions too. Because like we said, we lucked out. You and I, we love pretty much the same things.
We're pretty close.
But I'm pretty sure if like it was a different situation in a fantasy dark dimension where I wasn't with you, it was something like if I put a giant portrait of like, as I have of Goku and Vegeta, someone might have a problem if I'm just putting that up in the living room.
Your alternate partner might have an issue.
Right. So you always got to find ways to kind of balance with a partner a little bit.
That is definitely a tough thing. And even we have found some things that we've needed to like talk over to make sure that we're not like being too, displaying too much of our own things versus the other person.
Yeah, have that healthy balance.
Yeah, and so I always recommend to look at it together, try to find pieces together, go for things that blend well with like neutral or minimalistic decor, just to keep it simple to start, just because you want to dip your toes in. You don't want to just like go for the full like big sculpture right in the middle of the room,
Right, yeah, where it's $800.
Yeah, and go into it together. Find the pieces together that you both like. That way it's not like, ugh, he got that awful piece and now it's just hanging on the wall and I have to look at it every day.
It sounds weird also, in a sense of like, you can always just show them the piece or the thing, obviously before you purchase it, but also before maybe explaining what it is, instead of just being like, oh, hey, I got this really cool Naruto thing. And instantly in their head, they're going, oh, great, ninjas, it's going to be some.
Or that,
and it ends up being some great, landscape piece. That's beautiful. That was a concept sketch, right. Or the hidden leaf or something. And so sometimes try to help them also get over their their preconceived notions of what nerdy culture can be.
Yeah.
Because if your partner really isn't as nerdy, but you always find shared interests. There's an inner nerd in all of us.
That's true.
Maybe they don't like D&D, but they like things like fantasy movies. They might like or space movies. So maybe rather than, getting a Free map, you get a Tolkien map,
Right.
or you get a galaxy map from Star Wars. You find something that you both can blend in the middle, so you guys reach that happy middle.
I think it's on par with like when a partner really likes a sport or something like that, and the other partner gets the memorabilia for the sport
hanging
to display.
Up a jersey of the player.
Yeah. It's just in that similar vein where you kind of want to make your partner happy.
And I feel like that's really kind of the whole reason you have the house, right? It's for two people, so you want to try to have that balance.
And eventually a family if you want, that sort of thing.
Right. And not only, is it kind of the workings around it, but, we have been putting a lot of stuff in our apartment. If you're like us, and if you are in an apartment living, that requires a whole nother level of stuff and supplies and tricks and tips and tricks. I so wish I lived in a home so I could just mount everything into a stud and drill and
knock out walls,
shelves everywhere. Everywhere's a shelf. I'll put a shelf on top of a shelf. But we have found various places to find and have ways to put up stuff that looks professional, that looks clean, but won't destroy your security deposit.
Right.
And things like finding stuff on Etsy and Amazon to start.
Huge.
It sounds weird, and it's a weird thing that I do, but I sort from the cheapest first and work my way down.
Yeah, because then you get through all the the BS
sometimes
stuff.
Find some really unique things that maybe are inexpensive for a reason, but can be used in a variety of different ways.
Oh yeah.
You might find sometimes I've found the same item first inexpensive that I would have found more expensive for the same item for a different seller.
And we've run into that before where we have purchased an item that we later found at a much cheaper price.
I hate that. And it's especially the same thing at conventions.
Oh, yeah.
Conventions are great for certain things.
Yes.
Now, that's to shop, to look. Now, when we go to conventions nowadays, we're more looking for things to fit specific niches, to fit into this spot. Because if you just come in with, a couple $100, you're going to come out with nothing.
$0.
So you really want to make sure you go through and you can find one-of-a-kind pieces, but make sure, Glorious is the internet. You can do a quick Google search. Amazon's the best friend at conventions.
So good.
Sometimes you'll find a great deal, seize it. If not, put it down.
Yeah, it's always best to err on the side of caution. And it's always good to have your partner around, too, to keep you from making those, like quick jump decisions,
Right. And you're kind of the master of mounting the various tchotchkes around our apartment.
It can be tough, and I've had a little bit of experience just because as an artist I've had to do that, but museum putty has been just a lifesaver for mounting pieces of art, as long as they're fairly lightweight. If they're like canvas, they shouldn't be too heavy. The putty on each corner should be able to hold them just fine, and they're super good. And then also we found some really amazing plastic frames from Amazon that were just perfect for some of the artwork here. They're not the greatest. We do plan on upgrading them, but to start displaying the artwork, it was so good.
And the big thing is they don't add that extra weight with
too.
them being lightweight and plastic. Because sometimes, obviously for the heavier pieces, especially in apartment living, it's tough, right?
Things can be knocked off the walls.
You don't want to have to put into the wall because obviously you're going to have to repair that. So by getting kind of those lightweight frames, it definitely helps cut back on it. But really, a big thing for us is shelving, bookshelves, all those. If you've ever seen any photos on our Discord, we have multiple bookshelves all throughout our apartment.
Oh yeah, I love bookshelves.
And that just really allows you can put them in places like your closet to allow extra space. As well as to create, an area that maybe wouldn't have space to put something and was just a dead space.
Yeah.
Now can have some of your belongings, your books, and kind of make a little portable bookshelf for you.
Yeah, and bookshelves aren't just for books. They're for, all your cute collectibles and everything. You can create themed shelves of your favorite books and items that go with it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and there's a lot of great options of both, we like to do the rustic modern, but you can find pretty much any kind of style you're looking for.
Oh, yeah. You want bright and vibrant. There's all sorts out there for you. And Amazon is really like a big, you can find anything on there that you want. But I really want to encourage everyone to just embrace your passions in your own home. If you don't have your own home, I know that's tough. If you can set aside a shelf or maybe your nightstand to do that for yourself, I would recommend it. Just to have a little piece of, your sanctuary with you. It's always helpful, I think, is because that's where your home is, that's where you feel at most comfortable. And so make it reflect who you are, what you love. And I think that helps us get through a lot in daily life,
Yeah, and like I was saying, for me, it's always about those little personal touches, because really anybody can buy something mass produced online and whatnot. But finding the little things that kind of speak to you or happen to be gifts from friends or family, those are the things that really matter the most, and they're kind of the important things to show off.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, don't be afraid to experiment. Whether you have a shelf or a closet you want to use, or just the whole damn house. Let your nerdy flag fly. Yeah. Show what you have, because really that's what we do. You whether we wear it on our body or we show it off our home, we like to show our hobbies. We like to show we're prideful in what we have.
We're proud nerds.
And we should never really, want to have that not be on full display.
Absolutely. So that's it for today's adventure, folks. We hope this episode inspired you to embrace your inner nerd and find creative ways to show it off at home.
Whether it's a single shelf or entire room, your home should reflect the things you love, and we love to see how you display your nerdiness. Share your photos on our Discord and tag us on social media with the hashtag NerdSpaces.
As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review and tell your fellow adventurers about you heard it from us.
Until next time, keep rolling those dice and living your best nerdy life.
Thanks for tuning in to You Heard It From Us.
We hope you enjoyed the adventure and picked up a few tips for your own gaming table. But the journey doesn't end here.
We'd love to hear from you. Join our Couple of Nerds Discord community, where you can share your thoughts, ask questions, and suggest topics for future episodes. Whether you're a seasoned player or just starting out, there's a spot for everyone at our table.
To keep up with all our latest adventures and episodes, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep the magic alive and connects us with even more amazing listeners like you.
And remember, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. Just search for You Heard It From Us and hit that subscribe button.
We can't wait to see you on Discord and hear your stories. Together, we can make the world of tabletop gaming even more magical.
Until next time, keep rolling those dice.
And may your adventures be legendary.